Dr. Nigel Haroon. I hope I got your name correct, from Canada. He is the Associate Professor of Medicine and Rheumatology at University of Toronto and a clinician scientist and attending physician, University Health Network and Mount Sinai Hospitals. He's also scientist at Krembil Research Institute, Toronto, and is a Vice President of Canadian Rheumatology Association and Vice President of Association of Kerala Medical Graduates. He'll be talking to us about a topic which we are waiting eagerly, the end game, vaccines. Dr. Nigel.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan, and the pronunciation was perfect. It's not usually the case. And Dr. Ashil, I don't know who is more of an expert than yourself, and you've thrown the ball to my court to see when the vaccines will be ready. So unfortunately, I don't think I have a clear answer for that, but let me try and take you through where we are at currently. So my idea is to look at the end game. The end game is really what is in store and what's going to bring us back to normalcy, and our vaccines the answer to that. Before starting, I would like to say that I'm a consultant for several companies that are involved in vaccine production at this time. But what I'm going to say, hopefully, there is no direct issues with that. And I don't think there is a problem with that. Okay. Currently, if you look at the current status, I think there were a few other speakers who mentioned the number of vaccines currently available. The large number of vaccines, almost 140, are in the preclinical phase of development. 6 vaccines are in phase 3 and appear to be quite promising. At least 2 to 3 of them appear to be quite promising. And I'm aware of only 2 strong publications that have come out with human data, with the phase 2 data. The phase 3 studies are going on. And here is just the list of the 6 vaccines that are in phase 3 trials currently. We have the Oxford, the 3 candidates from China. We have the Moderna vaccine, and of course we have the BioNTech vaccine, which is also getting a lot of popularity these days. And if you look at the type of candidate vaccine, which is the 3rd column here, you will see that there are different kinds of approaches to making these vaccines. Inactivated vaccine would be the usual one that we are used to more commonly, and then you have the adenovirus vector-based vaccine. And this particular one from Oxford is a chimpanzee adenovirus, so that it doesn't interfere with any past human adenovirus infections that we might have had. And the Moderna and BioNTech are nucleic acid-based vaccines. So if you listen to a number of talks or read data on vaccine development, you will see that the actual timeline is quite long. It may run into several years. And we are proposing that we will have a vaccine by the end of this year or early next year. So is it really just hope or more of a hype? Is it more of financially driven, or is it really science-based? So this is, just in brief, some of the techniques used for development of vaccines, and you can use a vector like the adenovirus one, which I mentioned. You can use the inactivated or nucleic acid-based vaccines. When you actually try to use an attenuated or inactivated virus, culturing them in cells or, for example, in eggs, and all, took a lot of time, and it took a lot of manufacturing process was quite difficult. With the modern techniques, especially with the nucleic acid techniques and all, a lot of this has been really shrunk. And the advantage of the modern vaccines is that it really helps in a T-cell mediated B-cell immunity. And you can see here when we get a vaccine, let's say an intradermal vaccine, or you get an intramuscular vaccine, or dendritic cells, which are the cells you see to the left here, picks up the antigen and it brings it to the lymph nodes. In the lymph nodes, it interacts with the T-cell and it gets activated. And a particular kind of T-cell, the T follicular helper cell, which is marked by this receptor here, CXCR5, it helps it home to the follicles. Once it gets into the follicle, it interacts with the B cell. And this is made a bit more easier to understand in this cartoon. So once you have the follicular helper cells interacting with the D cells, it gets into the B cell. And finally, in the germinal center, you have the germinal center associated with the T follicular helper cells, which actually helps the B cell undergo somatic hypermutation. The affinity of the B cell and receptor becomes more and more, and the antibody improves in improves in quality and specificity over a period of time. So that is the beauty of having a T-cell mediated B-cell response in our body, and the nucleic acid vaccines have been shown, the one which is the Moderna one, as well as the other nucleic acid vaccine which I mentioned, have been shown to have this property of developing a T-cell mediated B-cell response. And you can see here, so if you inject the mRNA alone, compared to that, if you have a lipid nanoparticle, which is again the virus vaccine that we are using, you get a significantly higher uptake in these animals. Similarly, you have a modified nucleic acid where instead of uridine, you're using a pseudouridine in the mRNA, and you get a significant increase in the uptake of this vaccine. And this is exactly the technique that is being used in the Moderna vaccine, as well as in the BioNTech vaccine, where nucleic acid-based vaccines are being used. So definitely there is hope. So the next question is, what are the side effects of these vaccines? If you see, this is the study that was published with around 45 patients with 3 doses, 25, 100, and 250 micrograms. And you'll see these are the reported side effects. It could be, some systemic symptoms are seen in a large chunk of patients. This is after the first bolus, and this is after the second, not the first dose, and this is after the booster dose. So we are expecting to have a vaccine with at least 2 doses. That's my understanding currently. And you'll see that after the second dose, a lot of patients have myalgia, headache, chills, fever, so a lot of systemic symptoms, but serious side effects, none have been reported so far, fortunately. And if you look at the efficacy, you can see that the antibody production measured by ELISAs are quite high. And in fact, there is no significant difference with the highest dose, so probably we'll be going with one of these 2 doses later on. And if you look at the antibody levels in convalescent plasma, the levels of antibody achieved are almost similar. So there is definitely hope. Now, the next question is, how about neutralization? Are these neutralizing antibodies? And you can see that if you look at the neutralization assays, compared to the convalescent plasma, in fact, the neutralization assay looks same or even better than most of the convalescent plasma serum here. So there is, again, good efficacy there. Another way to look at neutralization is to look at the reduction in the number of plaques. Again, similar results. Okay, going on to the Oxford vaccine. The Oxford vaccine is the chimpanzee adenovirus vector vaccine, which I mentioned. It's a single-blind RCT done in 5 UK sites. And the comparison, there was a control arm here with a meningococcal vaccine, and the primary reason for adding this control vaccine was to control for the systemic symptoms that develop after a vaccine. So if you have one group of placebo group with no systemic symptoms, are there, automatically the blinding will be affected. So that's why you have an active vaccine as a control arm, and you can see here pain and tenderness at the site appears to be the most common side effect with this vaccine. And if you look at the other adverse events, just like with the other, as you expect with most many viruses, you can see that headache, joint pain, malaise. So a few systemic symptoms are also there. Again, with this vaccine, no significant adverse effects have been reported, fortunately. Similar to the previous study, look at the convalescent plasma antibody level. And you can see that the antibody levels are similar to the convalescent plasma. Neutralization assays are similar results, and T-cell responses, fortunately, you can do it by either flow cytometry or by ELISpot assays, looking at the T-cell production of inflammatory cytokines, and they look promising. And finally, I'll say that maybe the Gamaleya Institute COVID-19 vaccine is really the wild card, because you've heard of news reports that they are directly going into clinical application, especially in the military, and also without even going through phase 3 studies. So it's an adenovirus-based vaccine. One last slide, which I would like to leave you with. Some lessons from Canada. We know that we need a lot of preparations to go in for vaccination, but you can see what Canada has already done. We've already done 75 million syringes, alcohols, 250,000 needle disposals, everything ready. Temperature controlled warehouse spaces are being considered in different parts of the country, and people we're getting codes for getting all of this ready for an eventual vaccine. So be prepared, and I think we should be able to get back to normal, hopefully in the near future.